Hello everyone and welcome back to C.A.R. Entertainment. I'm your host Alan Hamilton, and today we're going to be continuing our 822 biology revision videos, guys, and we're moving on to a wee bit about selection. It's not actually bad selection, it's not a bad topic. Of course, we did the sources of genetic variation, but now we're going to move on to actual selection, and then we'll do speciation, which is a wee bit about Charles Darwin as well. But we'll go on to selection now, so we can talk about our stabilizing selection and our directional selection as well. But first off, we haven't been talking about Darwin. He is involved in selection, of course, obviously, because variation is subject to selection pressure, and there's beneficial variations that increase your chances of survival, but there's also harmful variations which will harm your chances of survival. So Darwin came up with this thing, and he said, right, well, those that are better adapted will survive at the expense of the less well adapted, and this is known as survival of the fittest, which takes place. In survival of the fittest, this concept is likely to happen when there's competition for resources, and this is known as the struggle for existence. And these summarize the key tenets of Darwin's theory of natural selection. Selection is caused by genetic or environmental factors, but only the genetic variation will contribute to a change in allele frequencies over time. The key points about selection is that it will act in populations or organisms through its effects on individuals. Selection has to be environmentally dependent because selection too could lead to a change in population variation, and it must be genetic, not just environmental. So that's the only way it will lead to a change. Better adapted individuals are very likely to produce more offspring because obviously they're surviving, and selection is also an ongoing process that's continually happening. Stabilizing selection is the first form where average individuals are best adapted because this type of selection favors the modal variance. This means that, for example, in a range of height, the average height being 5'9" for males, that means those people are the best adapted, they're the most likely to survive, and those like extremes like 6'9", 6'10", and those maybe 5 foot dead, 4'9", they're less well adapted and they're likely to be selected against. So these highly adapted populations will be in stable ecosystems, and almost all selection taking place will be stabilizing. Stabilizing selection is not a force for evolutionary change, and that's why it's quite rare to come across it. So instead we see directional selection, where average individuals are not most adapted and the best adapted have phenotypes at extremes. So for example, we will take height for example. The average being 5'9", majority of people, if you're 6'5", you're better adapted to normal people. And therefore you'll be selected for, and this is why, as we see continuously, the average height of people increasing. Directional selection is most likely to occur in the scenarios where the environment is changing or a population will colonize a new habitat. Now we're going to talk about antibiotics in forms of selection, so for example in bacteria. So the antibiotic penicillin was developed to basically combat bacteria as an antibiotic, penicillin, and it does this by disrupting the bacterial cell wall formation. But 95% of bacterial strains are now resistant to penicillin, and this is caused by a random mutation in the bacterial genome. And this is because they've got used to it, they've seen, right, this is happening, so therefore we're going to develop this mutation, so therefore we can fight against it. So this mutation will then lead to a production of enzymes that will break down penicillin, or it will change its cell wall structure, preventing its entry. So then we developed a new antibiotic called methicillin, which was initially successful, but now some strains have become resistant to methicillin, and therefore we have developed this new superbug, as if you want to call it, called MRSA or MRSA. And what that stands for, I'm going to have to get the lungs out for this one. Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. I'll say it once more. Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA. And it is an antibiotic resistant in bacteria directional selection, or the use of antibiotics as a selection pressure. The evolutionary change in the species has occurred over time, and the change in phenotype is underpinned by genetic change. Polymorphism is a little thing that we have to talk about as well, and this is, and a wee note about it is that when a species is decimated by disease, a small number will survive, and therefore whenever the numbers increase, a new population will be different genetically from that earlier gene pool that was decimated, and therefore it'll be limited to a range of genes in the survivors, and this evolutionary change is called the genetic drift. Polymorphism then, what actually is it? Well, it's populations with more than one alternative for a particular trait, and therefore the presence of two or more genotypes that produce distinct phenotypes. Thank you for watching this video. I've been Alan Hamilton from C.A.R. Entertainment, and I will see you next time.